Hi, my name is Sonia Massai. I'm a professor of Shakespeare Studies at Sapienza, University of Rome, and an affiliated professor at King's College London, which was my home institution while my colleague Dr. Amy Lidster and I were working on a research project called Wartime Shakespeare. Wartime Shakespeare was generously funded by the Leverhulme Trust and focused on establishing how Shakespeare has been used at times of war. Our findings are presented in two books, both published in 2023 by Cambridge University Press. And I am going to tell you a few words about one of these two books, Shakespeare at War, A Material History.
I'm Dr. Amy Lidster, and I'm a departmental lecturer in English language and literature at the University of Oxford. With Sonia Massai, I am co-editor of Shakespeare at War, A Material History, and the author of the monograph Wartime Shakespeare, two linked books that were published by Cambridge University Press in 2023.
A collection of essays which includes 26 contributions about the systematic mobilization of Shakespeare at times of major conflicts with a British involvement, which span from the 7 Years' War in the mid-18th century to the Iraq War in the 21st century. Contributors include authors from across a wide range of disciplines and areas of expertise, from Shakespeare and theatre and performance studies to military historians. The book also includes contributors who are rarely, if ever, put into conversation with academic experts. We have essays by 5 major theatre directors, Maria Aberg, Nicholas Heitner, Iqbal Khan, Julia Pascal, and Maggie Smales, whose work invited audiences to reflect on the legacy of past conflicts and why we go to war still in the 21st century, and how we process the experience of being at war individually and as a nation. We also have essays by 2 major public figures, ex-British Army General Jonathan Shaw, who was hired to work as a military advisor on Nick Heitner's 2013 National Theatre production of Othello, and ex-British Army Colonel Tim Collins, who writes about what prompted him to deliver an eve of battle speech to his troops, the 1st Battalion of the Royal Irish Regiment, on the 19th of March 2003, immediately before they crossed the border into Iraq.
We call it a material history because each of our 26 contributors begins with a material object linked to the use of Shakespeare during wartime. This could be a theatrical prop, playbill, photograph, cartoon, letter, or other item. Each contributor describes and discusses that object in connection to the wartime history in which it plays a part, and then uses this object as a jumping off point for asking bigger questions about the significance of Shakespeare during a specific conflict or context. These objects all appear in glossy colour reproductions within the book.
This emphasis on objects and the diverse stories that they can tell us about Shakespeare at War makes this book the first comprehensive material history of the reception of Shakespeare at times of war.
Our collection is also linked to a free public exhibition that we curated at the National Army Museum in London, which is open from October 2023 until September 2024. Some of the objects featured within the collection appear in the exhibition, alongside many other items that expand upon these diverse histories of Shakespeare at war. Previous work on the topic of Shakespeare and war has often focused on how Shakespeare represents war in the plays, but we wanted to offer a cross-period reception history about how Shakespeare has been used during conflict. While other scholars have also explored this topic, most studies have considered a single conflict, such as the First World War, and we wanted to attempt a reception history that spanned several centuries to help us understand Shakespeare's significance as a cultural figure during wartime and how his appeal has changed and sometimes been contested.
Shakespeare War in our time functions as a space within which artists, as much as the military, have grappled with the moral complexity of contemporary warfare. I should stress that these three main stages in the reception of Shakespeare War only tell part of the story or stories that we record and discuss in this book. Our emphasis on specific objects which tell unique stories about unique individuals and how they read, promoted, or critiqued or experienced war has allowed us to find that each use of Shakespeare we have studied is never straightforwardly jingoistic or entirely critical about the reasons for going to war. We have found, in fact, that Shakespeare functions primarily as a space, cognitive and emotive, ideological and personal, within which even the most resolute calls to war or the most radical of critiques of the reasons for going to war are interestingly nuanced. It seems that in most cases, Shakespeare is invoked in the lead up to the outbreak of major conflicts to try and avoid them. And during conflict, as a reminder of those values that one tries to protect when faced by the possibility of individual and collective extinction. I worked on many projects, I must say, over the years, but this one is the one that's touched me most profoundly because of the stories that we have dug up in archives, because of the people that we have met to and talked to along the way. And I would like to conclude by mentioning some very special people. First of all, once again, Colonel T. Collins, who encouraged us to approach colleagues at the National Army Museum and those colleagues at the National Army Museums who accepted our proposal to have an exhibition about Shakespeare and War hosted on their premises.
War is prevalent in Shakespeare's works, but I think the reason that Shakespeare is used so frequently during conflict is not because these texts tell us what to think about war, or because they offer an unambiguous rallying cry that boosts morale and patriotic sympathies. I think it's owing to the cultural status that Shakespeare has acquired over the centuries, but also because the texts are open to different, sometimes conflicting readings. Henry V is both a charismatic leader and a warmonger, and this malleability means that the plays support, or can be made to support, very different interpretations. The bigger questions that this book and my monograph address are: what role does culture play during conflict? And how does Shakespeare's meaning and appeal shift across the centuries and in different contexts? In sum, I think that what Shakespeare means for us, both then and now, depends on how he is used and read. We use Shakespeare to give our wartime experiences meaning, and the history offered in this collection reveals how various individuals, communities, governments, and nations have used Shakespeare to process their experiences of being at war. The collection is also an invitation to research further and delve deeper into these pasts, which we hope you're encouraged to do too.